I thought leaving New York would feel like breathing again, but at 2:17 in the morning, sitting in the last row of the Port Authority bus terminal with a one-way ticket to Seattle folded in my palm, all I could do was wonder if a woman could survive breaking her own heart. The rain had followed me inside somehow. It clung to my coat, dripped from the ends of my hair, and gathered in cold dots on the scratched blue floor beneath my boots. Around me, the city looked half asleep and half dead. A janitor pushed a yellow mop bucket past the vending machines. A man in a Yankees hoodie snored with his chin on his chest. Somewhere overhead, a tired voice announced a delayed bus to Albany, the words crackling through the speakers like they were being dragged out of an old radio. I kept my suitcase between my knees and my purse pressed against my ribs, not because there was much worth stealing, but because it held the only things I had left. $43 in cash. A nurse's license. A photo of my little sister Lily from her high school graduation. And a diamond ring I had never worn, wrapped in a napkin at the bottom like a secret too sharp to touch. Vincent Hale had given me that ring 3 months ago in a room full of white roses and black-suited men who looked away when he took my hand. He had not asked me to marry him. Men like Vincent did not ask. They decided, and the world rearranged itself around the decision. Back then, I thought that kind of certainty meant love. I thought the way he watched the room before he watched me meant I was safe. I thought the car outside my apartment, the silent driver, the doors opened before I reached them, the phone calls that came exactly when I forgot to text him back, were proof that someone finally cared whether I made it home. I was 27 years old enough to know better, young enough to mistake a cage for shelter when the bars were polished gold. My bus was scheduled to leave in 13 minutes.
Gate 41.
Seattle by way of Chicago, Minneapolis, and a dozen towns where nobody knew my name. I had chosen the farthest place on the board because distance felt like the only language. Vincent might understand. Not goodbye. Not please let me go. Miles. Thousands of them. I looked down at the ticket again, my thumb rubbing the ink until it smudged. Emily Carter. 1 passenger. No return. The words should have comforted me. Instead, they made my throat close. I had spent the last week selling furniture, quitting my job at Mercy General, closing my bank account, and leaving no forwarding address. I had done everything right. I had moved quietly, carefully, like a woman escaping a storm without waking the thunder. Still, every time the automatic doors slid open, my body tightened before my mind could tell it not to. Every tall man in a dark coat became him for half a second. Every deep voice made my pulse trip. That was the cruelest part of loving Vincent Hale. Even after he hurt me, some broken part of me still searched for him in every room. I hated myself for it. I hated him more for teaching my heart to recognize danger as home. The clock above the departure screens clicked to 2:18. I stood, pulling the suitcase handle up with a metallic snap that sounded too loud in the near-empty terminal. My legs felt weak, but they held. That mattered. Some nights, holding yourself upright was the bravest thing you could do. I took one step toward gate 41. Then another. The bus waited beyond the glass, its engine rumbling, its red brake lights bleeding across the wet pavement outside. Freedom looked like a tired driver checking a clipboard under fluorescent lights. Freedom smelled like burnt coffee, diesel, and rain. Freedom was ugly and ordinary and mine. I was 6 feet from the gate when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. I had changed numbers that afternoon. Only Lily had this one. My hand went numb before I even saw the screen. The message had no name attached. Just a photo. Lily, sitting in the back seat of a black car, eyes wide, a strip of silver tape across her mouth. Beneath it 7 words. Get on that bus and she disappears. The terminal tilted. Sound drained away until all I could hear was my own breathing, fast and thin, tearing at my chest. I tried to call her. The line failed. I tried again. Nothing. My suitcase slipped from my hand and hit the floor. The bus driver called for final boarding, but I could not move. I stared at my sister's face until the image blurred, until fear became something cold and clean inside me. Then every light in the bus station went out. For one breath, the entire world vanished. No signs. No faces. No exits. Just darkness, rain against glass, and the sudden silence of strangers holding still. When the emergency lights flickered on, dim and red, everyone was looking toward the front doors. I did not have to turn to know. My body knew first. The air changed. The room tightened. Even the rain seemed to pause against the windows. Vincent Hale stood at the entrance in a black overcoat, soaked from the storm, his face pale under the red emergency glow, his dark hair pushed back, his eyes fixed only on me. No army rushed in behind him. No raised voice. No command. Just Vincent, the man who had once made an entire city lower its eyes, looking at me like I was the only thing left standing after the end of the world. I should have run. I should have screamed. Instead, I lifted my chin and forced the words through my shaking mouth. You do not get to stop me anymore. He walked toward me slowly, each step measured, careful, like he was approaching something wounded and afraid to make it worse. When he stopped, he was close enough for me to smell rain on his coat, close enough for every memory I had buried to rise up and press against my ribs. He looked at the phone in my hand, then at my face. His voice, when it came, was lower than I remembered and rougher too. I am not here to stop you, Emily. He reached into his coat and my heart kicked hard, but all he pulled out was a passport, a set of keys and a thick white envelope. He placed them on the bench beside my abandoned suitcase. I came to make sure you leave alive. For 3 seconds I forgot how to hate him. Vincent Hale stood in front of me with rain slipping from the edge of his black coat, his hands empty now, his eyes fixed on mine with a kind of restraint that frightened me more than anger ever had. The passport, the keys, and the white envelope sat on the bench between us like proof from a different man, one who understood that freedom could not be handed over with a command. My fingers tightened around my phone until the cracked edge bit into my palm. Lily's picture still glowed on the screen. Her eyes looked too wide. Too young. She was 21, old enough to tell me to stop worrying, young enough that I still remembered tying her shoes before school when our mother worked double shifts. I raised the phone between us. Where is she? Vincent looked at the image once, and something moved across his face so fast I almost missed it. Not surprise. Recognition. My stomach dropped. You knew. His jaw tightened. I knew Adrian Cross had been watching you. I did not know he had taken Lily. The name landed cold in my chest. Adrian had always been a shadow at Vincent's right shoulder. Blonde, clean-cut, polite in the way expensive knives looked polite in a locked display case. He had opened doors for me. Sent flowers when Vincent was out of town. Once, he had brought Lily coffee while she waited outside my apartment, smiling like he was harmless. I took one step back. You let him near us. Emily, Vincent said softly, and I hated that my name still sounded different in his mouth, like something he had no right to touch but could not stop reaching for. Do not do that. Do not make your voice gentle now. Not after everything. Around us, the bus station began to stir again. Emergency lights buzzed overhead. A baby cried near the vending machines. The driver at gate 41 called final boarding for the second time, annoyed and unaware that my whole life had just split open 10 feet from his bus. Vincent glanced toward the gate, then back to me. Adrian wants you to run. He wants me to chase. He wants us separated, scared, and predictable. I gave a short laugh that sounded nothing like laughter. Congratulations. He knows us well. Pain flashed in his eyes, but he did not defend himself. That was new. The Vincent I knew would have turned the room colder with one sentence. He would have told me fear made people careless. He would have taken my suitcase, put me in his car, and called it protection. Tonight he stood still, waiting. I looked at the envelope on the bench. What is that? Cash, a new identity card, and an address in Oregon. A woman there owes me a favor. She runs a clinic. She will help you disappear. The answer should have comforted me. Instead, it made something angry and broken rise in my throat. You plan my escape for me? I planned an option, he said. Not a cage. The words hit harder because they sounded practiced, like he had spent nights alone learning how to say them without turning them into orders. I looked away first. Through the glass doors, the city blurred behind sheets of rain. Yellow taxis passed like ghosts. New York had always been loud, but in that moment it felt like it was holding its breath, waiting to see whether I would choose the bus, the man, or the sister who had once given up college applications for a year so I could finish nursing school. My phone buzzed again. This time there was no photo, just an address. St. Bridget's, East River. 1 hour. Come alone or she pays for your courage. My knees almost gave out, but Vincent reached for me and stopped himself halfway. His hand closed into a fist at his side. That small act broke something in me more than any apology could have. He was learning restraint in front of me second by second, and I hated that I could see it. I hated that it mattered. St. Bridget's had been abandoned for years, an old church by the river with boarded windows and a bell tower no one repaired. I knew it because Lily used to photograph it for her art class, calling it beautiful in the way broken things sometimes were. I shoved the phone into my pocket and grabbed my suitcase handle. Vincent stepped aside, giving me the path to the exit. "You should get on the bus," he said. I stared at him. "My sister is not on that bus. Adrian will expect you to come." Then he should have expected better. I pulled the ticket from my pocket, tore it once, then again, and let the pieces fall to the wet floor. Vincent watched them scatter without moving. For the first time since I had known him, the most powerful man in the city looked like he had no idea what I would do next. Good, I thought. Let him learn what uncertainty felt like. I picked up the keys from the bench, but not the passport, not the envelope, not the life he had built without asking me. "You do not command me tonight," I said, my voice shaking but clear. "You follow me." Outside, thunder rolled over Manhattan, low and distant. Vincent lowered his head once, not like a king granting permission, but like a man accepting a sentence he deserved. Then he opened the door to the storm and followed. The car Vincent had left outside the terminal was not one of the black SUVs I remembered from the old days. It was a gray Ford Explorer with mud on the tires, a cracked coffee cup in the holder, and no driver waiting by the curb. Ordinary. Almost invisible. That unsettled me more than the armored cars ever had. Vincent opened the passenger door and stepped back, not touching me, not guiding me with a hand at my spine the way he used to do when he wanted the world to know I was under his protection. I got in because Lily's face was still burning behind my eyes, not because I trusted him. The seat was cold beneath my damp coat. Rain hammered the windshield so hard the city became a smear of red lights, yellow cabs, and silver pavement. Vincent slid behind the wheel, started the engine, and waited until I buckled my seatbelt before pulling away from the curb. The small pause made my throat tighten. He had always noticed everything. That was what made him dangerous. That was also what had made me feel safe before I understood the difference. We drove east through Manhattan in silence. The dashboard clock read 2:31. 29 minutes gone. 31 left. I watched his hands on the wheel. No rings. The heavy black signet he always wore was missing from his right hand. The mark it had left on his finger was pale against his skin, like even power could leave a tan line when removed too late. "Where is your ring?" I asked before I could stop myself. His eyes stayed on the road. "In a drawer." That ring was not just jewelry. Everyone knew it. Vincent Hale's ring opened doors, ended conversations, and made grown men straighten when he entered a room. "Why?" I asked. "Because the last time I wore it near you, I forgot there was a woman in front of me, not a territory to defend." The words filled the car and sat there between us, heavier than thunder. I looked out the window because looking at him felt dangerous in a different way now. Not the old danger. Not fear. Something worse. Grief with a pulse. We passed a closed diner, a pharmacy glowing green, a homeless man sleeping beneath a plastic tarp while the city pretended not to see him. New York kept moving no matter whose life was ending inside it. That was one thing I had learned in the emergency room. Ambulances came and went. Families cried in hallways. Coffee burned in break rooms. Then the next patient arrived and grief had to make room. Vincent's phone lit up in the cup holder. A name appeared on the screen. Marcus. He did not answer. "You should take it," I said. "He is probably one of your men." "He is." "Then answer." "No." "Why not?" "Because you told me to follow you." I turned to stare at him. Rainwater traced the line of his jaw. He looked exhausted, not in the way men looked after losing sleep, but in the way people looked after losing the version of themselves they had spent years building. For a moment, the streetlights flashed across his face and I saw the man from 3 years ago, before the suits, before the ring, before I understood what his name could do to a room. He had been lying on a hospital bed at Mercy General with a torn shirt, a guarded expression, and eyes that looked like they had made peace with never being saved. I had been working my third double shift that week, living on vending machine crackers and bad coffee, When they brought him in through the side entrance with two men who refused to give real names. He had looked at me through the haze of medication and pain, and the first thing he said was, "You should have let me die." I remembered snapping gloves onto my hands and answering without thinking, "I do not get to choose who deserves saving." That was the first time Vincent Hale looked at me like I had surprised him. Not impressed him. Not amused him. Surprised him. Like I had stepped into a locked room inside him without knowing there was a door. For weeks afterward, white flowers appeared at the nurse's station. No card. Then coffee during night shifts. Then a hospital wing donation in my mother's name after he somehow learned she had died waiting for insurance approval to cover a test that came too late. I should have been frightened. Instead, I was tired, lonely, and foolish enough to believe kindness was always clean if it came wrapped beautifully. "You never told me how you found out about my mother," I said quietly. Vincent's fingers tightened once on the wheel. "I had someone look into you." "Of course you did." "I am not proud of it." "That does not erase it." "No," he said. "It does not." The honesty hurt. I wanted him cruel. Cruel would have been easier to leave. The Explorer crossed onto a darker stretch near the East River, where warehouses stood with blank windows and chain-link fences rattled in the wind. My phone buzzed again. I flinched so hard the seatbelt locked across my chest. Vincent noticed but did not reach for me. The message showed a photo of St. Bridget's front steps, wet stone shining under a single broken lamp. Beneath it, 20 minutes. No police. No backup. I swallowed. Vincent read it from the corner of his eye, then turned down a side street. "That is not the direct way," I said. "No. You are changing the plan." "I am changing the route." I said, "You follow me." "I am." "Then why are we turning?" "Because Adrian knows how fear drives. He knows the roads I would take if I were still the man he expects." He glanced at me just once. "I am trying very hard not to be him tonight." The words landed softer than they should have. Ahead of us, the old church bell tower rose against the storm, black and broken, waiting by the river like a secret New York had forgotten to bury. The church looked smaller up close, but somehow more threatening, the way abandoned places do when the city has stopped pretending they are harmless. St. Bridget's sat behind a rusted iron fence 2 blocks from the river, its stone steps dark with rain, its boarded windows crossed like tired eyes. The old bell tower leaned slightly against the storm, and a single security light buzzed above the entrance, turning the falling rain into silver needles. Vincent parked half a block away beneath the shadow of an elevated roadway. The engine ticked softly after he turned it off. For a moment, neither of us moved. My phone said 2:43. 17 minutes left. I could feel each one pressing against my ribs. Vincent looked through the windshield at the church, then lowered his voice. "Emily, listen to me." "No." His head turned toward me. "I am not giving orders. I am giving information. There is a difference." I swallowed the sharp answer on my tongue because Lily was inside that building, or Adrian wanted me to think she was. Fine. Information. Adrian does not choose places by accident. St. Bridget's has 3 exits. Front doors, side sacristy door, an old basement access facing the alley. If he gave you the front steps in the photo, he wants your eyes there. Then we take the side. Maybe he expects that too. I hated how calm he sounded. I hated more that his calm steadied me. In the emergency room, panic spread faster than blood pressure alarms. The person who could breathe became the person everyone looked at. Vincent had always been that person in dangerous rooms. I had once mistaken it for strength. Now I wondered how much of it had been loneliness wearing a tailored suit. My phone buzzed again. I nearly dropped it. This time the message was only 2 words. "Come inside." Attached was another photo. Lily's left hand, the small moon tattoo on her wrist visible beneath the sleeve of her denim jacket. Beside her hand, resting on the seat, was the friendship bracelet I had made her when she was 12, blue and white thread, frayed at the knot. I stopped breathing. Vincent saw the photo and went very still. "She is alive," he said. "You do not know that." "I know Adrian. He wants pressure, not an ending. Do not make him sound strategic. Make him sound like what he is." Vincent looked at me then, and the red glow from the dashboard cut shadows under his eyes. "He is a man I trusted because he knew how to be useful. That was my mistake." "Your mistake is in that building with my sister." "Yes. No excuse." Just yes. The simplicity of it almost broke me. I had waited months for him to stop explaining himself like a lawyer defending a kingdom. Now he had, and there was no satisfaction in it. Only the ache of arriving too late at a door I had already locked. I reached for the handle. Vincent caught the air near my wrist, then stopped before touching me. Emily. What? If I go in first, he may move Lily. If you go in alone, he may think he has control. Then I go in. He nodded once, though every muscle in his body seemed to reject it. I will be behind you. No backup? No visible backup. That was not the same answer. I stared at him. Vincent. His mouth tightened. Marcus and 2 others are 4 blocks out. They will not move unless you tell me to tell them. You brought them after I said no backup. I brought them far enough away to respect you and close enough to hate myself less if I am wrong. The honesty was infuriating because it sounded almost reasonable. I opened the door and stepped into the rain before I could forgive him by accident. Cold soaked through my jeans in seconds. The wind off the river cut under my coat and made my teeth press together. Vincent walked beside me, not ahead, not behind, matching my pace like he had to think about it. At the gate I stopped. The iron bars were wet beneath my palm. Once, years ago, Lily and I had stood outside this church in daylight while she photographed pigeons on the roof and told me broken things had better stories. I had laughed and told her she spent too much time romanticizing mildew. She had grinned at me through the camera and said, maybe. Or maybe you do not look long enough. Now the same church waited in the rain. And my baby sister was somewhere inside because men with money and grudges had decided my love made a useful weapon. The front doors groaned when I pushed them open. The sound rolled through the empty nave, low and wooden and old. Inside, the air smelled like damp stone, dust, and candle wax left from another lifetime. Red emergency lamps lined the aisle, glowing faintly between rows of broken pews. At the far end, near the altar, a phone sat on a wooden chair. Screen lit when we entered. Vincent stopped beside me. I picked it up with shaking fingers and pressed play. Adrian's voice filled the church, smooth and almost cheerful. Hello, Emily. You brought him. I knew you would. The recording paused and a second sound came through, small and muffled but unmistakable. Lily crying. My knees weakened. Vincent's hand hovered near my back but did not touch. Adrian's voice returned, lower now. The question is not whether he can save her. The question is what he will give up when saving you both finally costs him everything. The phone screen went black. Then the church bell rang once above us, though no one had pulled the rope. The bell's single note moved through the church like a warning from something older than all of us. It rolled above the cracked ceiling, down the damp stone walls, through the rows of broken pews, and settled in my chest until my heartbeat seemed to answer it. Vincent looked up toward the bell tower, then toward the side aisle. I followed his gaze. There was a thin line of light beneath a door near the altar, pale and trembling, like someone had left a candle burning in a room that should have been empty. Lily, I whispered, but Vincent shook his head once. Not yet. The old anger sparked in me. Do not tell me what to do. I am telling you what Adrian wants you to feel. He wants you running before you think. I turned on him, rain still dripping from my sleeves onto the dusty floor. My sister is crying somewhere in this building. Thinking is a luxury. Thinking is how we get her out. His voice did not rise. That made it worse. It made me remember every argument where I had screamed because he had stayed quiet. Every time his calm made me feel childish instead of terrified. I took a breath that scratched all the way down. Then think faster. Something passed across his face. Pain maybe. Or pride. He nodded and stepped back, letting me stand in front. The tiny surrender should not have mattered. It did. I hated that it did. The phone in my hand lit again. A new message appeared. The woman chooses the door. I stared at the screen. Vincent did not reach for it. He read over my shoulder, close enough that I felt warmth through the cold air but not close enough to touch. There were 3 doors at the front of the church. The side door with the light under it. A dark wooden door behind the altar. A narrow stairwell door leading up into the bell tower. My mouth went dry. He is making me pick. Yes. Which one? Vincent looked at each door, then at the floor. Dust lay thick across the old tile, broken by trails of footprints. Some large, some smaller. My pulse jumped. There. I pointed toward the bell tower stairwell. Smaller prints. Lily wears Converse. Size 7. Vincent moved closer but kept his hands at his sides. The prints go up but none come down. So she is upstairs. Maybe. Or the shoes are. My stomach turned. Do not say that. Emily. Do not. His jaw tightened but he obeyed. We stood together in the red gloom listening. Somewhere above us wood creaked. Then a sound came through the ceiling. Not a scream. Not even a word. 3 short taps. A pause. 3 short taps again. My eyes burned instantly. When Lily was little and afraid during thunderstorms, she used to knock on the wall between our bedrooms. 3 taps meant, "Are you awake?" I would knock 3 back. Always. Even when I was exhausted. Even when I had school in the morning. Even when I thought I had no patience left, I gave her those 3 taps because children should never have to be afraid alone. My hand flew to my mouth. It is her. Vincent's expression changed. Not softer. Sharper. Certain. Then we go up. He took 1 step toward the stairwell but I caught his sleeve. Wait. My own voice surprised me. He looked down at my hand on his coat, then back at me. I let go quickly. If Adrian wants me to choose the door, then the choice matters to him. The bell tower is too obvious now. Lily is signaling but that does not mean she is where he wants us to go. Vincent's eyes held mine, and for the first time in years, I saw him looking at me not like something precious to shield, but like someone competent enough to stand beside him. Good, he said quietly. My throat tightened. Do not sound proud of me. I am always proud of you. The words came so simply that I almost stumbled under them. I turned away before they could do damage. The 3 taps came again, but this time I heard something beneath them. A scrape. Metal against stone. Not from above. From below. I looked toward the altar. The dark wooden door behind it had no light beneath it, no footprints leading to it, nothing dramatic enough to demand attention. Which made it exactly the kind of place Lily would notice if she was trying to help me think. The basement, I whispered. Vincent followed my eyes. Old access to the river tunnel. You knew there was a tunnel under this church? He looked almost ashamed. I know too much about places people forget. The phone buzzed again before I could answer. This message was longer. Very good, Emily. You always were smarter than he deserved. Bring him down. Alone. Leave your phone on the altar. I looked at Vincent. Rainwater had dried at his temples, leaving his hair darker. His face drawn tight under the red emergency lights. For once the choice was not his. It was mine. I walked to the altar, placed the phone beside a cracked brass candlestick, and turned toward the basement door. Vincent started to follow. I stopped him with one look. He said alone. Vincent's face went still. Emily, no. You said you would follow me. I did. Then follow this. Stay here for 10 seconds. Just 10. His hands curled once at his sides, every instinct in him fighting the shape of my decision. But he stayed. I opened the basement door and cold air rose from below, smelling of river water and old stone. As I stepped onto the first stair, Lily's voice drifted up from the darkness, small but clear enough to break me. Emily, do not trust the light. Lily's voice came from below me, thin and shaking but real. It moved through the stairwell like a match struck in a sealed room, small and impossible and bright enough to make my knees weaken. Do not trust the light. I froze with one hand on the damp stone wall. Behind me in the church above, Vincent did not move. I knew because I could not hear his shoes, and somehow that silence frightened me more than if he had followed. 10 seconds, I had told him. 10 seconds was nothing. 10 seconds was also long enough. For a life to turn. Lily, I called softly. Where are you? No answer came at first. Only the drip of water somewhere deep in the basement and the distant rush of the East River beyond the old walls. The air smelled like rust, dust, and cold rain trapped underground. I took another step down. Then another. The stairs were narrow, uneven, and slick beneath my boots. A weak yellow glow waited at the bottom, spilling from a doorway to the left. It looked warm. Safe. Exactly what a scared person would move toward. Do not trust the light. I turned away from it. To the right, there was only darkness and a low passage with brick walls sweating moisture. I reached for my phone before remembering it was on the altar. My hand closed around nothing. For one terrible second, I was 27 years old and 6 again, standing in a hallway after my father left, listening to my mother cry behind a closed door, knowing there were kinds of darkness no lamp could fix. Then 3 taps sounded from the right passage. I moved toward them. Emily? Lily's whisper cracked on my name. I almost ran. I wanted to. Every nerve in my body screamed for speed. But the emergency room had taught me that panic wasted movement. I kept one hand on the wall and followed the sound. The passage bent sharply, and there she was, sitting on the floor beside an old metal utility cabinet, wrists loosely bound in front of her with white cloth, not injured, not broken, but pale with fear and soaked from the rain. Her denim jacket was dirty. Her brown hair stuck to her cheeks. Her eyes found mine, and the child I had raised inside the little sister I loved looked back at me. I dropped beside her. I have you. I have you. My hand shook so hard I struggled with the knot. Lily leaned forward until her forehead touched my shoulder. You came. Of course I came. I hated how small my voice sounded. Are you hurt? No. They scared me. They kept moving me around. One man told me to cry into the phone. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Stop. She pulled back, her eyes filling. This is not your fault. I almost laughed because that was what people said when fault had already found. A home inside your chest. The knot finally loosened. Lily rubbed her wrists and looked past me toward the stairs. Is he here? I knew who she meant. Yes. Good. No, I said sharply. Not good. Lily grabbed my hand. Emily, listen to me. The man who took me kept saying Vincent would choose wrong. He said Vincent always chooses power first. Then he said you would believe that because Vincent taught you to. The words landed slowly, each one finding a bruise I had stopped touching because it never healed. Above us, a door creaked. Vincent's 10 seconds had ended. Footsteps moved down the stairs, controlled and quiet. I should have been angry. Instead, relief hit me so hard I had to close my eyes. Adrian's voice floated from somewhere beyond the lit room to our left. How touching. Sisters reunited. Lovers almost honest. Vincent appeared at the end of the passage, his face carved from shadow, his hands visible at his sides. He looked first at Lily, then at me, and something like breath returned to him. Adrian stepped into the yellow light, wearing a clean gray coat and the kind of calm smile that belonged in boardrooms, not basements under abandoned churches. He held nothing threatening. That almost made it worse. His power was not in his hands. It was in how well he had arranged the room. Emily Carter, he said, warm as Sunday coffee. You found the right door. I stood, putting myself in front of Lily before thinking. Vincent noticed. So did Adrian. See? Adrian smiled wider. She protects what she loves. You protect what you own. Vincent did not answer. The silence seemed to irritate Adrian more than any threat could have. For years I watched men kneel because of your name, Adrian continued. I watched you build loyalty out of fear and call it family. Then one nurse looked at you like you were still human, and suddenly the empire had a heartbeat. How inconvenient. Vincent's voice came low. Let them walk out. And what will you give me for that? Vincent looked at me. Not at Adrian. At me. That was when I understood the trap. Adrian did not want money. He did not want revenge only. He wanted to prove that Vincent's love was another form of control. He wanted me to watch. Vincent bargained with my life and mistake sacrifice for ownership all over again. I stepped forward. Nothing, I said. Both men looked at me. My voice shook, but it held. He gives you nothing for me. I am not his to trade. Adrian's smile faded by half an inch, and somehow that small change made the basement colder. The yellow light behind him trembled against the brick walls, catching the damp seams in the stone, the old pipes overhead, the dust floating through the air like ash from a fire no one could see. Lily gripped the back of my coat. Vincent stood across from us with his hands still visible, his face unreadable, but his eyes were not on Adrian anymore. They were on me. I am not his to trade. The words echoed inside me after I said them, larger than my fear, larger than the room, larger than every night I had let love convince me to become smaller. For 3 years I had been protected, watched, moved, guided, surrounded. People opened doors before I touched them. Cars waited outside my work. Men lowered their voices when I entered restaurants with Vincent. I had mistaken all of that for being cherished. But cherished things could still be placed on shelves. Loved things could still be locked away. Adrian tilted his head. Brave. Very moving. He looked at Vincent. Are you going to allow her to speak for herself now? Vincent did not look away from me. Yes. The answer was quiet. Immediate. It hit Adrian harder than a shout would have. He blinked once, then laughed under his breath. You have changed your script. Vincent took one slow step forward, then stopped when I raised my hand. He stopped for me. Not for danger. Not for strategy. For me. The basement seemed to hold that moment carefully, like even the old church understood what it had cost him. Adrian's jaw tightened. This is disappointing. I expected more thunder from the great Vincent Hale. I expected the ring, the threats, the men at the door. Vincent's mouth barely moved. You built your plan for a man I buried too late. Adrian's eyes sharpened. No one buries what made him king. Maybe not. Vincent reached into his coat, slowly enough that Lily flinched behind me. My breath caught, but he did not pull out a weapon. He pulled out a folded document sealed in a clear plastic sleeve. Then another and another. He dropped them onto the old wooden table between him and Adrian. The papers landed with soft, ordinary sounds that made them feel more dangerous. Adrian stared. What is that? Vincent's voice stayed calm. Transfer orders. Account access. Property signatures. Names, dates, witnesses. Everything you have been stealing in my name for 18 months. Adrian's face lost its warmth completely. Vincent continued. Copies went to Marcus 4 minutes ago. More went to people who dislike being lied to almost as much as they dislike me. You should check your phone. For the first time, Adrian looked uncertain. Pass quickly, but I saw it. So did Lily. She whispered, Emily, what is happening? I squeezed her hand without turning. Vincent did not come here to trade me. He came here to give away the parts of himself men like Adrian understood. Adrian reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone and looked at the screen. His expression did not break, but it thinned like ice under too much weight. You would burn your own house down for her? Vincent looked at me then, and there was no possession in his face. No command. Only grief. I already burned hers down by standing too close. I am paying for the smoke. My throat closed so hard it hurt. Adrian set the phone down very slowly. You think this makes you noble? No. Vincent's voice roughened. I think it makes me late. The words moved through me with a force I was not ready for. Late. Not innocent. Not forgiven. Late. That was the first honest thing love had ever sounded like from him. Adrian stepped away from the light, and for 1 second his shadow stretched across the floor between us, long and crooked. Then footsteps sounded above, not rushing, not chaotic, just firm. More than one person. Adrian looked up. Vincent did not. Marcus? I asked. Vincent's eyes flicked to me. Only if you want him to be. It was such a strange answer that I almost laughed. In the middle of that basement, with river water breathing behind the walls and my sister trembling at my back, he still remembered what I had demanded. Choice. I looked at Adrian. He had used Lily's fear, my history, Vincent's guilt, the old church, the storm, all of it to build a room where he thought everyone would become their worst selves. But he had made one mistake. He thought I came there as Vincent's weakness. He never imagined I might be my own strength. Yes, I said. Let Marcus come. Vincent lifted his phone, pressed one button and spoke only 2 words. Come down. Adrian's face hardened, but the room had already shifted. Power, I realized, was not always the man with the empire. Sometimes it was a woman deciding who got to enter the room. The basement door opened above us. Footsteps began descending. Lily stepped out from behind me, still holding my hand but standing taller now. Adrian looked at her, then at me, then at Vincent, and for the first time that night his smile was gone. Vincent moved beside me, close but not touching. He looked at Adrian and said, she was never the price. Then he looked at me, his voice softer. And she was never mine to keep. Marcus came down the basement stairs like a man entering a church service he did not want to interrupt. 2 others followed behind him, both in dark coats wet from the storm, both quiet enough that their footsteps sounded respectful against the old stone. No one rushed. No one shouted. No one turned the basement into the kind of scene Adrian had tried to write for us. That was the first sign that Vincent had not only changed his plan, He had changed the people allowed to carry it out. Marcus stopped halfway between the stairs and the yellow light. He looked at Vincent, then at me, waiting. Not for Vincent's order. For mine. The realization moved through me slowly. I had spent so long being surrounded by men who acted before I could speak that silence from them felt almost unreal. Lily's hand trembled inside mine. I squeezed once. "I am okay," she whispered, but her voice was too thin to be true. I pulled her closer anyway. Adrian looked at Marcus with sharp disbelief. "You are taking instructions from her now?" Marcus did not blink. "Tonight, yes." Adrian laughed, but there was no warmth left in it. The sound hit the brick walls and came back smaller. "How democratic of the Empire." Vincent stepped forward, stopping beside the table where the documents lay under the trembling yellow light. "There is no empire after tonight." The words were quiet, but the room reacted. Marcus looked down. One of the men behind him exhaled. Adrian went perfectly still. Even I felt the floor shift beneath me, though nothing moved. Vincent had said many impossible things in my life. He had promised safety in rooms built from danger. He had promised love while standing guard over a cage. But he had never sounded like this. Empty of performance. Full of cost. Adrian's face tightened. "You do not mean that." Vincent picked up the plastic sleeve with the signatures and placed it flat on the table, smoothing one corner with 2 fingers. "I signed before I came to the station. Marcus has the rest. By sunrise, every legitimate business gets separated. Every account you touched gets frozen. Every person who followed me because they feared my name is free to walk." "You are giving them a choice?" Adrian said the word like it tasted spoiled. Vincent looked at me. "Yes, choice again." It kept returning like a bell tone. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just impossible to ignore. Adrian stepped closer to the table, his polished shoes stopping at the edge of the light. "You think this absolves you? You think handing away keys makes you clean?" "No," Vincent said. "Nothing makes me clean." That answer silenced him. Silenced me too. Because once Vincent would have argued. He would have listed every reason, every enemy, every childhood wound that turned him into a man who believed control was the same as care. Tonight he gave none of it. No excuses. No crown. No polished speech. Just a man standing in a basement beneath an abandoned church, finally refusing to confuse regret with redemption. Lily leaned against me, and I felt the shiver run through her. "We need to leave," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Marcus moved instantly toward the side passage, but he looked at me before opening the way. I nodded. He continued. Adrian watched the exchange with something close to hatred but smaller. Maybe because his whole plan depended on Vincent dragging me behind him, and instead, everyone in that room was learning the shape of my permission. Vincent turned slightly, giving Lily and me the path to the stairs. "Go first." I looked at him. "You are not coming?" "I will. After you are outside." The old fear flared. The old pattern. The old ending where men stayed behind in shadow and women were expected to be grateful from a distance. "No." His eyes lifted to mine. "Emily, no more heroic disappearing acts. No more deciding that your pain is proof of love. If you are leaving this basement, you walk out where I can see you. If you are staying, you tell me why. If you are saying goodbye, you say it to my face." Marcus looked away. Lily went very still. Vincent's expression changed, not with anger, but with recognition. He had heard the truth under my words. Not about the basement. About us. About every locked door, every unanswered call. Every night he had made decisions and left me to survive the consequences. He nodded once. "You are right." 2 words. Simple. Late. Necessary. He stepped away from the table and came toward us, not reaching, not claiming space, just walking until he stood close enough to leave with us. Adrian's voice followed, low and bitter. "She will still leave you." Vincent stopped, but he did not turn around. "I know." My breath caught. Adrian continued, almost smiling again. "Then what was all this for?" Vincent looked at me then, and the yellow light caught the exhaustion in his face, the rain drying on his collar, the absence of the ring on his hand. "So she can leave alive," he said. "And so she knows." I finally understood the difference. The difference between what? I asked, though part of me already knew. His voice softened. Between losing someone and setting her free. The basement seemed to fall away. The damp walls. The papers. Adrian. The men. All of it blurred behind the strange ache opening in my chest. I wanted to forgive him in that moment. That scared me more than the church, more than the storm, more than any threat Adrian had made. Forgiveness was not a door you open because someone finally knocked correctly. Sometimes it was a house you had to rebuild from the foundation, and I was tired of living in ruins. Lily tugged my hand.
Eminencia.
I nodded. We climbed the stairs together, Marcus ahead, Vincent beside me, Lily between us and the fading dark below. At the top, the nave waited cold and red-lit, rain whispering against broken windows. The phone still sat on the altar beside the cracked brass candlestick. As we passed it, the screen lit one final time with an unsent message already typed but never delivered. I saw the words before the battery died. He will choose you, but will you choose yourself? Outside, the first gray line of morning touched the church doors. Morning did not arrive like forgiveness. It came thin and gray over the East River, slipping between the buildings, touching the wet stone steps of St. Bridget's, and showing us exactly what the night had left behind. Rain still fell, but softer now, more like exhaustion than anger. Lily stood under the broken arch of the church doors with both arms wrapped around herself, wearing Marcus's coat because she would not take Vincent's. I understood why. Fear was strange that way. It remembered symbols before it remembered facts. Black coats. Dark cars. Men who knew your name before you gave it. Vincent noticed, of course. He noticed everything. But he said nothing. He only stepped farther away so Lily could breathe without feeling watched. That small distance almost hurt more than an apology. Marcus spoke quietly into his phone near the gate, arranging doctors, safe transportation, statements that would not put Lily's name in the wrong hands. Adrian had been taken upstairs by men who no longer looked at him as if his confidence meant anything. No raised voices.
No dramatic ending.
Just papers, choices, and the quiet collapse of a man who had built his power on predicting everyone else's weakness. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt hollow. My body had carried terror for so many hours that without it, I did not know how to stand. Lily leaned her head on my shoulder. I pressed my cheek against her damp hair and closed my eyes. She smelled like rain, dust, and the strawberry shampoo she had used since high school. "Are you still leaving?" she whispered. I opened my eyes. Vincent stood at the bottom of the steps facing the street, giving us his back like privacy was something he had only just learned how to offer. My suitcase was still at the bus station. My ticket was torn on the terminal floor. My old life had been packed in a hurry, my new one interrupted before it began. I did not know where I belonged anymore. Maybe that was the answer. Maybe belonging had been the wrong goal all along. "Yes," I said. Lily lifted her head. "Today?" I looked at the pale line of dawn beyond the river. "Not to Seattle. Not yet. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere I can hear myself think." She nodded like she understood more than I said. "Maine," she whispered. "Remember that clinic job you showed me last year? The one near the coast?" I remembered. A small urgent care center in a town with fewer than 8,000 people, white clapboard houses, fishing boats, and winters that looked impossible on the website. I had saved the listing during a night shift and then deleted it because women connected to Vincent Hale did not get to imagine quiet lives. "I guess you saved the screenshot," I said. Lily almost smiled. "I save everything you are too scared to keep." The words went straight through me. Across the steps, Vincent turned, not all the way, just enough to hear. He did not speak. He had no claim on this moment, and for once he seemed to know it. Marcus approached and handed Lily a bottle of water, then looked at me. "There is a car ready whenever you want it." I glanced at Vincent. He was still wearing the same rain-dark coat, still barehanded, still without the ring that used to make rooms rearrange themselves. He looked less like a king in the dawn, more like a man who had stayed alive long enough to regret what he survived becoming. I walked down 2 steps. Lily's hand slipped from mine but stayed close. Vincent faced me fully then. His eyes moved over my face once, careful and brief, as if even looking too long might become another form of taking. "I am going to Maine," I said. "I do not know for how long. I do not know what happens after that." He nodded. "Good." The answer startled me. "Good." His mouth tightened like the word cost him. "Good that you are going somewhere, that is. Yours. The rain tapped against the iron fence. A taxi hissed past on the wet street. Somewhere behind us, the church bell gave a tired metallic creak but did not ring. I waited for him to say more. To ask for a phone number. To promise he would change. To turn the dawn into another contract written in a softer voice. He did not. That silence was the first gift he had ever given me without wrapping it around expectation. I reached into my purse and pulled out the napkin from the bottom. The diamond ring sat inside, cold and bright and untouched. Vincent's face changed when he saw it. Not with hope. With pain. I stepped closer and placed it in his palm. His fingers did not close around mine. They stayed open until I let go. I carried this because I did not know how to leave the version of me who almost said yes, I whispered. His throat moved. And now? Now I am leaving her too. He looked down at the ring, then back at me. She deserved better than what I offered. So did I. Yes, he said. You did.
No argument.
No wound disguised as pride. Just the truth standing between us in the rain. I thought truth would feel cleaner. It did not. It felt like pressing on a bruise to see if the body was finally healing. Lily called my name from the top step. The car had arrived. A blue sedan with fogged windows and headlights pale in the morning mist. I turned to go. Emily, Vincent said. I stopped but did not turn around right away. When I finally looked back, he was still on the bottom step, not following. I am not asking you to come back. His voice was rough, almost unfamiliar. I am going to learn how to be someone who does not make love feel like a place to survive. The words opened something in me, but I did not step toward him. Not then. Maybe not ever. I nodded once because that was all I could give without betraying myself. 3 months later, the coast of Maine smelled like salt, pine, and coffee from the bakery below my apartment. The clinic was small. The winters were cruel. Lily visited on weekends and filled my refrigerator with food I forgot to buy. Some mornings I still woke reaching for fear. Some nights I still heard rain and thought of black cars. Healing did not erase memory. It taught memory where to sit. On the first day of spring, I found white roses outside the clinic door. No name. No demand. No address. Just a card with one line written in Vincent's careful hand. I am not asking for your road back. I am only learning how to stop being the storm. I stood there with the sea wind lifting my hair and the sun warming the steps beneath my shoes. For the first time, I did not feel owned by the past. I did not feel rescued by a man. I felt alive because I had chosen to stay alive. And sometimes that is how a woman begins again, not by being kept, not by being claimed, but by walking away with her own name still whole in her hands.